guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new Entitled People content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, Neighbor Phones Police Because Mother-in-Law is Parked Across the Road from Their Driveway. This literally just happened. For some background, I live in Council Estate in the UK. If you've ever been in one, then you'll know we're all jammed in here like sardines, especially when it comes to parking, with most of it being roadside. They're not bad places to live, but if you have more than one car, chances are you'll be parking it on the roof. Anyway, we have a mix of bought houses among us mere commoners. One such fancy pants lives across the road, and a couple of houses up, complete with their own two-car driveway. Posh, I know. Well, me and my partner have recently had a baby, so my mother-in-law has been coming by a lot more for visits, as you can imagine. Usually, she parks outside our home on the road like we do. But as we're not kings of the road, sometimes those spaces aren't available. So, she parked partially across the road from the aforementioned fuckwit's driveway. This is in no way illegal, and pretty much every house in our street with a drive has a car parked across the road with no issues. Not these folks, oh my lordy. We've had several notes left on her car with passive-aggressive messages such as, "We will try not to hit your car," and "If you have no road awareness, you probably don't know that what you're doing is illegal. So I suggest you move now. Always sign your fed-up neighbors." We try to explain to them that it's not illegal to park across the road, and also that if they simply just came to the door and asked, we would move as soon as it was possible. But no, they started petty. So the saga continued. Well, the lady of the driveway came to my home, banging on the door like the police with an arrest warrant. Scared the pants off our little girl, who I had to then take to the door screaming her pants off, only to be comforted by more screaming from our friendly neighborhood correspondents. My mother-in-law was not having it and came to the door to tell her to do one because of her attitude, stating that she could have just asked nicely instead of yelling at a mom and her baby who have nothing to do with it. This resulted in a tirade of threats from the old twatbags. Long story short, she screamed that she was phoning the police and we would be fined or arrested for parking on her property. Someone should have probably told them that their property barrier doesn't include public roads opposite the property. I can't wait for the police to get here and see that parking across her drive actually meant being parked at the opposite side of the road. So fellow road users, according to our charming neighbors, about half of the UK population better move their cars before the popo come and getcha. Thanks for listening to my rant. I know it's only parking, but my God, the entitlement. Next one is titled, Entitled Woman Thinks She Can Scare My Father Into Buying Her a Brand New Car. First of all, I am from Germany, so I am apologizing in advance for any errors that may happen grammar-wise. Backstory. My dad is a car mechanic for over 30 years now and is self-employed for like 25 years. He has a very good reputation too, and is one of those people who always tries to not get in any argument at all costs, just like myself. This whole situation happened like 2.5 years ago, and over the course of several months. I can clearly remember that day, and it shakes me every time I think about it. It was the end of the first week of summer break here in Germany, and I had an eerie feeling and got up from our couch to walk towards the front door and saw smoke coming out of the open door of our garage and asked my mom what my dad was doing today. She answered that he was welding and why I asked. I then got in action and told her that there was smoke coming out of the open garage door. She came down out of our office where she wrote bills for my father's clients. We then went out there and found out that the car was on fire because the main wires of the electrical system were on fire. Thankfully, my dad had already gotten out from under the car. We then rolled the car out of the garage while my mother called the fire department. By the time she was calling them, one of the firefighters, which just so happens to be our next-door neighbor, came rushing over with his fire extinguisher and helped to clear the fire. His wife had seen what was happening and had told him to hurry up. We already had used our fire extinguisher and were just relieved that our neighbor was there with us, helping us in a professional manner. By the time the fire department arrived, the fire was already under control, and they just had to basically cool the car down so that it was for sure that it wouldn't begin to burn again. The car itself hadn't so much of damage, but the whole wires for the basic functions of the car were destroyed. So it was basically totaled even though the body was fully intact. The police was also called and asked us what had happened. They said that there weren't going to be any consequences out of this for my father because the fire was already under control when the firefighters came. They all went and said that we should all go inside and calm a little down after what had happened. For your information, it wasn't a full-blown fire, thankfully, but there was a lot of smoke and heat. I think everybody can understand that I was still in shock and that I was just glad that my father was unharmed and that I had this bad feeling. I still think that everything would have been gone for the worst if I hadn't had this bad feeling and gotten up to look out of our front door. So after we all had calmed down a little bit, my dad went to the woman who owned the car and told her what happened. He even wanted to pay her 2,000 to 3,000 euro so that she could buy a new car. Her now destroyed car wouldn't have brought her more than 500 euro if she had sold it before it caught fire, and also wanted to help her find a good one. Through internet, he knows what to look for. This lady would have basically nothing to do, but she declined everything, except that we wanted to cancel her insurance for the car. So my mother went to the registration office and signed out the car. We thought this was the happy ending, but no, unfortunately not. Now comes the Karen of this story into play. I think it was 3 weeks later when my father got a letter from the police stating that someone had filed charges against him for intentionally setting the car on fire. He was supposed to come to an audience the next week or so that the process could begin. At this point, I was baffled that this entitled woman thought that she could get even more money from my father than he was offering her by pressing charges against him. She always seemed to be a nice lady. My mom was instantly furious and said to my father that we now needed a lawyer. So that's what my dad did. The next day, he had his first meeting with his lawyer, who then spoke to the police that my dad didn't set the car on fire, which also could be read in the official report of the police officers, which were called the day of the fire. So we thought that was it. But the lady had also a lawyer and wanted all the money she needed to buy a brand new car and the money she had spent to get to doctor's appointments. She's like 70 or something, so she has a lot of doctor's appointments. This went back and forth until she altogether stopped to pay her lawyer and also stopped to answer his calls and emails. She seemed to be impatient and thought she didn't have to wait for such a long time for the money she had wanted. A few months went on, and we hadn't heard from her or her lawyer when suddenly 3 police officers, 2 women and 1 man, showed up at our home. We just had gotten rid of the car, which stood all the time on our courtyard. We had given that lady a lot of time to get it off of our property, and when she didn't meet the deadline or heard anything from her lawyer to get more time, our lawyer allowed us to get it towed from our courtyard. They had been eyeing my car, which is from the same brand, and thought that this was the car they were looking for. My mom was alone at home when they came and told me this when I came back from school later that day. At that point, I hadn't had my driver's license yet. The man was like, "We want to inspect that car over there." Mom, why would you want to do that? Woman 1, because of the charges against Dad. Mom, then you are too late. That's my daughter's car. The car you are searching for has been removed just yesterday. Also, please speak to our lawyer, gives them phone number and address. Then they just went their way. My mother immediately informed our lawyer what had happened. A few days later, our lawyer found out why the police officers were here. The lawyer of the old lady tried to get somehow the money for the work he had done, so he got the highest rank of judge he knew in private to somehow get him his money. In the end, my father had to pay 300 euro to the state, so that the process would be brought to a close. And that was thankfully the end of it. Still to this day, we haven't heard or seen the old lady. Next one is entitled Karen at the Dentist. This happened earlier today, and it was my first encounter with a Karen. I'm not from the US. I was waiting in line to enter the building, dentist office, as is required following COVID protocol. So there I was at 9:50 a.m., and this lady, which by the way looked like your typical Karen, mid-50s with that haircut, blonde, not natural, and was walking as if the place was hers. Anyway, there I was behind her, and it comes her turn to enter. A lady was there checking for temperature and asking some questions as to guide her. And then the screeching started. Some highlights. "Why are you doing this to me? This is unfair. I cannot believe it. I will have your job by the end of the day. You will be hearing from me." Bear in mind that all this was in the high-pitched voice that makes your ears bleed. And then she started coughing really badly. So everyone around was understandably alike concerned because COVID. May I remind you that this was not even at 10 a.m. Way too early for this crap. With the help of an old lady, we asked her to leave so we can go to our appointments. Then she looked at us. with that look of disgust and shock and say, "You're siding with her?" She was then asked to step aside by a security guard so the rest, now at 10 to 15 people in line, could enter. Want to know what was the problem? She was asked if she had an appointment, and if so, to tell where. That was it. She just needed to say where she was going because there can only be so many people inside the building. Thus, they only wanted to know if she had an appointment. I was dumbfounded. All that, this early. Though you guys and girls might enjoy this, my very first, and hopefully the last, encounter with a Chilean Karen. Next one is titled, Entitled Bathroom Lady Threatened to Beat Me Up for Doing My Job. This happened when I was a cleaner in my job. One of my jobs is cleaning the men and women's restroom. Usually with cleaning, if I'm in the men's room, I have to make sure it's empty and lock myself, and since I'm a woman, for my safety and for the privacy of the men. If I'm in the woman's, it can stay open, since there is rarely a privacy issue, except for one thing, which is what the story is about. In the woman's bathroom, there is 3 stalls. One is a handicapped stall that has a broken latch that anyone could walk in. A common courtesy I always did was when I was cleaning, I would shout out, "Is anyone in the handicapped stall?" at least 3 times, so if anyone missed it, they heard it, so they could respond. It didn't always work, but people heard, and could jump in if someone said I never said that. Now keep in mind, unless I had to do a deep cleaning due to a major mess, or it's 9:00 p.m., it's always open during cleaning. One day it was the usual workday until the bathroom came up. I did my courtesy shout out, and someone from a different stall, not the handicapped, got all pissed off. She said she's in the first stall going to the bathroom. I replied I am only asking about the handicapped stall, not kicking people out. She, still a little aggravated, was upset, thinking I was kicking her out of the bathroom. I responded no, just was checking to see if the last stall is occupied. Then nothing from the lady. Fast forward to the next day, back in the ladies' room again, and was doing the same courtesy shout out, and again the same lady got aggravated in a different stall, but not the handicapped one, over the same reason. Again, I said I'm just checking to see if someone is in handicapped stall, don't worry, not kicking people out. She still didn't understand that I wasn't trying to kick anyone out and was just sweeping and didn't want to walk in on anyone. She was saying she needed to use the bathroom and I shouldn't rush her. In the meantime, some other customer who came in at the time I did the shout out said, "Don't mind her, she is just being rude." I thought it was to me, so I asked who she was talking to. She was talking to the lady in the stall about me. Dumbfounded, I responded to the lady who was sticking up for stall lady, "All I asked is anyone in the handicapped stall, not about any of the other stalls or anything else." While talking to this lady, stall lady said she is going to duck up whoever is talking. At that point, I did an about face and went to a secure location for a few, so stall lady wouldn't beat me up over nothing. I mentioned it to my boss, who said if she causes more problems, we can call the cops if it gets out of hand. I just don't understand how saying "is anyone in the handicapped stall" rude, or how entitled people have the self-absorbed mentally. Last one is titled, He Threw Away His Underwear Every Single Day. When I was in college, my middle-class roots fiancé lived in a fraternity house with some relatively wealthy people. One particular person sticks out for me as the high bar for spoiled behavior. He had a penchant for wearing Calvin Klein boxer briefs. They were roughly $1.25 each, and this was before you could buy them at Costco. He sent out his laundry to be washed and folded and dry cleaned, and never did any of it himself, but he absolutely refused to have anyone touch his underwear. In fact, because of this, he refused to wear the same pair more than once. So, every single day, he would open a brand new $1.25 pair of underwear, and every single day, he would throw out yesterday's underwear. If someone happened to touch his underwear for any reason, there would be another change. He was ordering them by the case. No one else has ever even come close to this on my spoiled-o-meter. How do I know this? His fraternity brothers, always happy to scrounge through the garbage, noticed that perfectly good underwear was going to waste. So they all stocked up, and then when they all, and I mean all, had more than enough underwear to go around, and there was still an endless supply, they started an underground underwear selling ring. Thanks for listening.